excuse me.
No, I feel like we have.
We're gonna sit in the audience and,
So we were supposed to have David Silverman as a member of the audience, but we were like, what the hell, we have David Silverman here. Why would we just having him as an audience member? Like, we should invite him to come, like, to speak on these subjects. But anyway, if you guys, when we talk about all these things, if you guys have any, if you want to just jump in and be like, disagree, if you want to just throw something at us, it's all good, right? Like, just tell us, like, raise your hand, be like, I disagree with you, Armin, you're an idiot, anything's fine. All right, so let's get started.
One more question. Sorry, could you please introduce the stage?
Oh, you guys don't know Dave?
No.
Okay, can you?
that's great.
All right,
Sorry.
introduce yourself.
I'm Dave Silverman. I was the president of American Atheists until last year when I was fired after 2 false Me Too allegations.
But he's a celebrity. He was on, he's on Fox News. He's been the Colbert Report. He was mentioned.
Yeah, I've been on TV lots of times.
Yeah.
Lots of times.
Yeah.
But it all ended really abruptly last year when 2 women made false allegations, and the board gave 0 due process to it. They just fired me on the spot without ever even asking once if I had done anything. They didn't actually tell me what the accusation what was happening. They fired me without any of that. So that happened in April of 2018.
Right.
Right after the most profitable American Atheist convention since 2012.
Right. So,
I had to feel a little bit.
yeah, that's what it is. But anyway, is that microphone? Is going to catch everything we're saying?
It's rolling.
No, but is it good enough for it to get?
I did test it earlier and it was working.
Okay, good. All right. Go ahead.
So I'd like to thank everybody for showing up, and I was expecting the surprise guest. Like David, I don't know if you remember, but about 3 years ago, I think you came to Vancouver for an event, and I had just left religion. I was still in that kind of anxious phase where I was just not sure about stuff. And I asked you a few questions and spent about 5 minutes explaining them to me. So I guess I'd like to thank you in front of everybody here.
Oh, well, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate you mentioning that.
Of course. So I guess we might start with the event. So my first topic I wanted to bring up was the Free Surveil event that you organized. Would you like to tell us more about what it's about?
Well, okay, so the problem with atheists in general is that they don't seem to be protecting each other as much as other groups out there when they need each other. Like, one thing we noticed is that when in Malaysia a couple of years ago, right, when people came after atheists in Malaysia, right? Our members, Atheist Republic members in Kuala Lumpur, all they did was they get together, they had some drinks, they took a picture and they posted it online. And that image went viral. They said Atheist Republic at Kuala Lumpur consulate, look, we're here. And they were proud that they found each other, right? The whole point of, we have consulates all around the world, like this was the Vancouver one, we have giant ones in India, Philippines, and this was the Malaysia one, right? And the picture went viral. Muslims were extremely angry. How could there be atheists in Malaysia? There was a call out for my beheading, officially call out for my beheading. I wasn't even in Malaysia. I didn't even know the group was organizing that. But eventually the government got involved and they said that we need to hunt down these atheists, right? And that got some attention. It got, thanks to Humanists International, they brought our case to United Nations Security Council. Thanks to people like Richard Dawkins, our case got a little bit of attention. But overall, nothing much happened. The deputy minister, there's no cost for him to go after atheists like that, right? But I tell people, imagine if any government official anywhere in the world, even in Saudi Arabia or Iran, if government official came out and openly said, we need to hunt down the Christians, or we need to hunt down the Muslims. Like, even somebody like Trump would not come out and say, we need to hunt down the Muslims, or we need to hunt down the Jews. Even countries as bad as Saudi Arabia and Iran, who do discriminate against the Jews, would not come and openly say, we need to hunt down the Jews. But a government that's supposed to be first world, like Malaysia, supposed to be one of the most moderate Islamic countries in the world, you have a deputy minister come openly say, we need to hunt down the atheists. And nothing happens. Nothing happens because nobody gives a shit about atheists, nobody gives a shit about atheists, including other atheists. Because when people go after Muslims are there for each other. When people go after Christians, when Christians are oppressed in Egypt, churches out there, they're talking about Christians. They're bringing attention to it. They're raising money, and rightfully so. I mean, we disagree with Muslims, with Jews and Christians and Hindus, but on this they got it right. On this they built communities to look after each other. When refugees come from Middle Eastern countries, they show up in Greece, there are churches there for Christians, for Christian refugees. They give them lawyers, they give them childcare, they give them food, they give them community. If you're an atheist refugee, there's nobody waiting for you. Nobody is there waiting for you. That's why a lot of ex-Muslims, atheists, when they go to Europe, they pretend to be Christians. Like we're ex-Muslim Christians, because at least there's somebody there helping them. So Atheist Republic decided to be the noise that needs to be there, the response, the cost to going after atheists, because there is no cost to going. The reason why it's so easy to go after atheists around the world, because there's no cost to going after atheists. So we thought there needs to be a cost, there needs to be a reaction. Right now it's a small reaction, we hopefully wanted to make it a bigger reaction. And people say, oh, these like protests that we had for Sohail Arabi. Who is Sohail Arabi? He's in prison in Iran right now for insulting Prophet Muhammad on Facebook. He did it anonymously, but somebody figured it out. He was on death row originally. Because of protests, because of other protests, he eventually got off death row, but he's still in prison, he's being tortured. Now his mom is missing because his mom was trying to get him out for 7 years. So, and after 2 years of people writing about him, then people start forgetting about him. And he's just there, rotting in prison. So we decided this is one of the cases that is not getting much attention, blasphemy case in prison, we tried to bring attention to it. And so a lot of you guys came out, thank you so much for coming out. People in many different other cities come out, London, all over Europe, in the United States. But it's still nothing compared to what Muslims get to do when something like this happens to them. Why is it? And it's interesting, when we try to do this, when we try to organize, people say, I don't know if you got this with American atheists. People are like, oh, you guys are like a church now. You're raising money. You're like a church now. Because like if I wanted to organize, if I wanted to become a community, I would have just stayed in church.
There's certain good things about churches, and that's one of them. They support their own. There's community, and why shouldn't we have similarities with people?
Why should they have a monopoly over community?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, are we just giving that to them? Like, okay, community and getting together and getting shit done, that's now a church thing? Like, so we let go of God, we didn't let go of cooperating and getting,
But it's a somewhat false sense of community, because it's all contingent on you can only be part of this community because of this arbitrary belief that you hold. Whereas I don't envision that being something that should come up with atheism.
No, I mean, it's fine if they want to have community. They have, I mean, here's the thing, we just disagree with their religious beliefs and their God beliefs. But if they want to protect each other and be there for each other, go for it. Like, that's great, do that. Mm-hmm. And we should do the same.
Yeah.
I'll just play devil's advocate here. I guess what they could respond to that is that for Christians, for Muslims, they share more than just a belief in a God. Like, if you're Christians, you're going to follow the same morality as prescribed by, because of the Christian faith. If you're Muslim, you're going to follow all that.
Right.
But for atheists, like, look at me and you, we completely disagree on morality, for example. So, other than that disbelief in a God, there's nothing else atheists per se agree with.
Well, that's why you have different atheist communities, right? You have different communities that stand for other things, right? So, for example, Atheist Republic is not just a disbelief in God. We don't believe in God, and we also want to get together and provide communities for atheists around the world. We believe in enlightenment values. So, and another atheist community may be like, well, we disbelieve in God, but we don't like Atheist Republic, what the Atheist Republic stands for, because we stand for these things. And you as an atheist could be like, well, I don't agree with every atheist out there, so I like this atheist community, and I don't like this atheist community, so I'm going to go join this atheist. Whatever, join the community.
I think, though, that's actually the crux of the problem, that there are these other communities, and so there's no one place where everybody, like, even when you're talking about Muslims, you're talking about Christians. I mean, there's a lot of Christian denominations, right?
And
But
Muslim.
if somebody were to, go against Christians as a whole in some place, all of them would probably get together because their own differences wouldn't matter. And I think that's the thing, that there's no one overarching place where all atheists can sort of feel that they belong.
So that's our policy at Atheist Republic, is that we do not, I mean, other communities could have different policies, but we go after, we go try to protect atheists that are being wronged, even if they're not part of our community, and even if we don't agree with their views. As long as you are being targeted because of your lack of belief, we want to be there for you. Right now we don't have the resources or the manpower to be there for everybody, but that's our policy. You want to say something?
Well, also, as much as it's hard to come to an agreement with anything other than the lack of belief in God, like there's LGBTQ organizations that, they're gay Christians, gay Muslims, and they still figure out a way to support each other because they're gay.
That's a perfect example. When the gay rights happened, when the gay rights started becoming more and more popular in the 60s and 70s, there were many different, they didn't agree on anything other than the fact that being gay is not wrong. That's the only thing they agreed on. And that they managed to create a movement based on just that. And we think we should be able to do the same thing.
It's valid.
Okay.
It's valid, it's ambitious. I've always thought the Atheist Republic agenda was ambitious. I've always considered, well, not always, but more recently I've come to the idea that you're really kind of a next generation of atheist activism. This is very cutting edge, and it's right, and it's the future, and it should be done. And we need to be seen on an international level. We need to be seen as a force on a global level, and that will help it at home. That will help us at home and save lives too.
Right.
So I think it's an admirable goal. I wonder how you'll do it. I wonder how you'll raise the funds. I mean, it's really ambitious.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we just get our. This is the first time we're mentioning this, by the way. We finally managed to get our 501c charity status in the United States, which is amazing because the Satanic Temple took a couple of years to get at, and for us it took a few months. So, you want to say something?
Yeah, so I just want to say, don't forget most religion, from Islam to Christianity to Judaism, always they have ruling class on their side. Always.
Right.
Like they've been funded, ruling class on their side. Like in the history, Christianity, king and church always work hands in hand. With Islam, same thing, and Judaism, the same thing.
Right.
The difference between atheists and the religious people is number one, we are kind of new, maybe 200, maximum 300 years, but religious going to 1500, 2000, and we don't have like governments or church. I mean, like a ruling class, kings, and like all these institutions. Yeah. Institutions who are supporting, protecting, and promoting religion. And at this time, when it comes to Islam, Islam is going through experience that maybe churches had 200 years ago. Islam became a political tool for many groups in Middle East, and it became a good political tool, fighting between Western and Eastern, and communism, anti-communism. Last 20, 30 years, Islam played that role. And as a Muslim, I think we are ex-Muslim, or Muslim community. We are not just attacked by Muslim community. We are almost also attacked by the government, who are making money by this new business. I call it business. In Iran, in Pakistan, in Iraq, and many places, it's a difference between Islam and other.
So,
I'm just thinking, before we move on, has there been any news for Sohail and Islam?
well, No, but there is a petition. I don't know how far that goes. The UK, we also had an attempt by Rationality Rules and Cosmic Skeptic to have a petition with the United Kingdom's government. That got rejected. Yeah. Let me tell you what our plan is. Our plan is to, so it's a three-phase plan, right? So we're going to keep doing these protests, right? First was Sohail Arabi, then we're going to try to do it with another person, and then we're going to try to keep bringing larger and larger crowds outside, right? The size of these crowds matter, and we don't yet know how to make these crowds bigger, but people are giving us feedback, and we're going to try to learn how to make the crowds bigger, right? So that's one phase. The second phase is that we're going to have, with our local groups, are going to try to build connections with local small reporters, because it's hard for us to, for now, to make connections with bigger reporters, right? And then once we make good connections with reporters that we can rely on to bring to these protests, then we can get more media coverage on these protests, right? So that's the second phase. The third phase is to try to build connections with local and small politicians to either come to these events or at least make a statement about it, right? So all three of these, the protest needs to get bigger. Eventually, slowly, the reporters that we build connections with, we want them to be from bigger media companies that have bigger coverage. And also the politicians that we're building connections with, we want them to eventually be not just local, small politicians, maybe bigger and bigger politicians, right?
Yeah.
So that for them to, our goal is that maybe 5 or 10 years from now, when we have a protest for somebody, it's going to be bigger crowds, and then make sure that it's going to get much more coverage, and to actually have politicians forcing politicians to put pressure on the countries that we want to put pressure on with these protests. So we're in a learning phase of figuring out how to do this, but that's the goal.
Cool. So one thing that comes up with that is, I thought your interaction with the police in front of the Armenian embassy was very interesting. I'm wondering how you'd see something like that playing out in Canada, or Vancouver specifically, where you have the police telling you to move on or trying to get information from you.
Well, I mean, isn't the law in Canada that I don't have to respond to a
I'm
question?
not sure what the law is.
So, well, my strategy is if I don't know what the law is, I'll just ask the policeman or woman to just tell me what the law is.
Am I obliged to
Yeah.
move on?
In a law, they did it in Europe. They attacked some embassy, Iranian embassy, and they noticed the police standing by the government and the embassy, and they don't let you to go, for example, throw the tomato or anything, just destroy the house, or attacking the fence or anything. They don't want it to be even close to that.
Yeah.
That means all the government are responsible for safely keep all the embassy, including Iran embassy, and they don't let you do that. Even in Canada, even though it's closed right now, Iranian embassy right now is closed, but they don't let you go around that to do anything.
Sure.
So yeah, I just said I guess, again, I'm playing devil's advocate, so you might disagree with what I'm saying, but I'm just finding things to, I guess, challenging one. I was listening to your vegan debate yesterday, and I'll apply it to this one. You used an argument against veganism that people could use against you on the pre-Sohail event. Like you said, why try to abolish things? Why not find a better way of, I guess, treating the animals rather than getting the animals out of the industry? Why not make the conditions better? So similarly, rather than try to free, I guess, political prisoners, why not make their conditions in jail better?
The difference is that the entire problem. Okay, but we're getting into veganism here.
Yeah, because you used that argument, that's why I guess.
No, because my entire problem with animals is the suffering, not the killing. But with humans, I have different concerns with humans.
But isn't Sohail suffering in jail right now?
Yes.
Isn't that the same thing that, I guess, similarly, animals would be experiencing in the industry, except he's in jail?
No, my argument is that if animals are raised in a humane way without any suffering, and they're killed in a humane way without suffering, that's okay.
So I guess
But
why
I
not?
don't think it says it's okay with humans. I don't know how that.
I guess I was going to ask you, like, why not maybe fight for Suhail to be treated humanly?
Because if he wins, he's still in jail.
Yeah, no, I'm using Armin's argument back
Yeah, but
against
you're
him.
using an argument for a human versus a own thing. They have different things. We want Sohail to be free. If he's got a pillow, if we have a big protest to give him a pillow, and he gets a pillow, what are we going to do next?
See, a human appreciates the difference between being able to move freely in this world and not being imprisoned, and being imprisoned. But the animal, as long as you put food in front of it and it gets to move around in a certain environment, I think it doesn't understand the difference between that and being able to, you know, be free from that. And, you know, it's not going to appreciate the difference. So.
Okay. Cool again.
A whole lot better off than they are in a well-run farm. You know, you have a choice of being killed humanely or being shredded by a coyote or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, which is not going to be fun either.
Yeah, so
Even free-range farms have an issue with that. Like, I remember reading where if you have more than so many hens in the same spot, it's called the pecking order for a reason. They freaking peck at each other, and a lot of times they do kill each other. So they figured out a way, what's the best way of how many can live in the same spot.
Right.
And then if you have too big of a room for them, then a lot of the times they will rush all together, and they will herd all together, and will stomp all over each other, and they will actually trample each other. So
Right.
there's
But let's not take this into a vegan argument.
Yeah, we'll get to veganism later.
No, we
I
shouldn't.
don't want to sort of generalize this because basically what we're talking about is transcending our evolutionary past. You know, when we were just another grade 8, we were shredding animals just as every other animal was, and we got shredded in turn by the lions or whatever. So this whole vegan debate, part of that is part of a bigger discussion, which is how do we transcend the negative aspects of our biology? And one of the more urgent ways is to overcome our tribalism, which is, you know, really tribalism is what's limiting our response as atheists to support other atheists.
I don't think though this crowd wants us to go to the vegan argument, so I think we should move on past that. Yeah.
So I guess the second topic I wanted to talk about was bigotry within atheist circles.
Okay.
So I think I sent you a recording yesterday. Or
Yeah. I don't understand when people say, "Oh, there's bigotry among atheist circles." Like, what? And what did you expect? Did you expect people to all of a sudden stop being bigots because they realize that there's no God?
No, my point was more that when you have, I guess, the bigger atheist speakers who are, I guess, promoting hatred towards minority groups, it makes it harder for these groups to join the bigger activism. Like, I don't know if, I can't remember the names exactly, but I know the ACA.
That's why we have different groups. You don't like one of them, you join the next one.
But would it not be better if we could make the space, I guess, more open to other people?
Yeah, by making a next one. By making the next community. Oh, here's a community. Oh, there's some people in there I don't like. Okay, the next one. Join that one. But if you think that one's not welcoming, join another one. You don't like that one? Make one.
I find more of an issue, and it's not unexplainable because we're all human and it's a human condition, is the fact that what I find disappointing is in the atheist community, we, the very grand we, tend to forget the difference between criticizing an ideology and being bigoted against people. And I find, depending on what subject it is, every single one of us is absolutely fucking capable of turning our brains off.
Right.
And just depending how emotionally involved we are in it.
See, whenever an atheist republic, we really go after Islam, especially because people tell us not to. But then when people attack Muslims, we also start defending Muslims. And every time we do that, for example, when Muslims are being mistreated in China, there's around 1 million Muslims in concentration camps in China for the crime of being Muslim. And you know, most Muslims around the world are not talking about it because they're so focused on Muslims being mistreated in Israel or the United States or some white countries. That's what they care about, most Muslims, right? But when Atheist Republic has been talking about China's mistreatment of Muslims, more on a per capita basis, more than Muslims, right? But every time we post that, I mean, that's wrong. Can you guys all agree? Like putting people in camps for being Muslim, that's a crime, right? But every time we post that, a lot of people from our own community, from the Atheist Republic community, post that like, well done China, like, oh, China's not going far enough, they should be killed, like obviously, like they congratulate China. Like even when we had the New Zealand shooting, when we posted that on Atheist Republic, there were comments calling the terrorists in New Zealand a hero, right? And we don't ban a single one of these people. We highlight it, we cover it on our show, like Jack is familiar with our show, right? So we do our live stream and we go over and we like show it to our own community, to the entire community. Like, look, these are atheists, these are members of Atheist Republic community that are cheering on the person that killed Muslims, right? And the thing is that the reason why we think we should highlight that, because a lot of people come and say like, I thought atheists were supposed to be enlightened or like humanists and or smarter or something like that. Well, I tell them the fact that you thought atheists are all smarter than religious people, you yourself are proof that atheists are not all smart. Because this is why we want to highlight them, to show people, because what we're trying to tell the world is that we're not less than you. Treat us the same. We don't want to tell the world that we're more than you. We don't want to claim superiority. I mean, we got the answer to one question right. One question, we got it right. That doesn't mean that we got everything else right. What do you think?
I think it's funny, but I think, just keep going, I'm listening to you.
Yeah, but...
I just have another response to that. Like, when there was the Reason rally in, I think, 2016,
right.
One of the biggest, I guess, backlash against that was that, oh, it's gone full SJW, so gone all crazy. Like, you would see like 1,000 comments on that online,
right.
and when they'll show you examples, it's black people who created the black non-believers, it's trans people who showed, hey, we are trans and we are atheists. And instead of supporting them, the whole online atheist community was going after them. And that could be one of
So see, you're doing the same thing that they're doing. Because they're looking at some examples like, oh, it went all SJW. But the other side does the same thing as well. They notice a few bigots, and they're like, oh, the atheist community has went all alt-right. It's went all right-wing now.
I'm not saying the whole community has gone bad. I'm just pointing out the problem.
But you said whole online.
No, I mean, sorry, I should have said that branch of the online community.
No, but people just, here's the thing, they join something, they just notice a few things that, like a few people that they don't like, and they're like, I'm done, I'm out, I don't like this guy and that guy, fuck this whole shit, I'm out of here. Like, I'm like, well, go then, we don't need you. Like, if the standard is that what, every single person that you meet has to be in agreement with your views for you to be able to get involved with the movement, like, yeah, good luck with that.
The issue that I have with these
echo tunnels. People don't like to leave their echo tunnels, and the problem is that in the online world, there is just so many people out there.
Right.
That you can find lots of people that agree with you exactly, and you friend those people.
Right.
And everybody else is a crazy person, even though it's,
everybody else is a Nazi.
Everybody else is a Nazi.
Right.
So this is what happened at the recent rally, and this is what's happening here. People don't like their echo tunnels being challenged.
Right. But what we say is that if they, at Atheist Republic, right, we say if they go after an atheist who is a racist, who is a misogynist, transphobe, son of a bitch, whatever, but they're going after that person not because of any of those things, but because of his atheism, then we're going to go protect that person. We're going to be there for that person. If it's because of his atheism, even if it's all those negative things, we're still going to go try to protect that person. I mean, we can't now because we don't have the resources. But that's our philosophy. We can't even do we can't even save one person right now. But go on.
So I guess, I'll bring up the Sam Harris Douglas Murray thing.
Right.
So there's a video that went viral of Douglas Murray calling trans people a whole range of slurs for 2 minutes.
Well, actually, that's a misrepresentation.
I mean, I'm for how long? In 1 minute?
No, I mean, no, that was, they weren't,
He
Okay.
told them,
Did you listen to that?
women with dicks, we still can win women a lot. Like,
So they
it's
weren't,
kind of,
okay, so I didn't like the clip, but they weren't attacking trans people, they were attacking some things that I've seen other trans people attack as well. I'm not saying, I'm not agreeing with the trans people that are attacking that, but they were making fun of the pronoun, how the pronoun rules are going too far and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that they were right or wrong, but they were not attacking, am I being fair with it?
It was kind of half and half, I felt. Like some of it was like, yeah, because it's kind of that whole idea of like, I'm completely against the idea of like you meet someone, you're like, okay, what is your pronouns? I'm like, if someone has that like requirement, I think that they should be free to say it, but I don't think we should be like, hi, I'm Jack, and my pronouns are, if I want to say it, that's fine, but I don't think that we should be asking everyone.
Right.
And I think they brought that up a little bit, but there was some things that they were talking about and laughing about that just kind of, and especially when like Sam Harris was like laughing back at it, I was just like, that's your opportunity to go, no, dude.
Yeah, so
that's
it-
a bit, yeah, so I felt like that never happened.
No, I mean, I didn't like it, but I don't think it's fair to say it was an attack on trans people. I mean, I don't think it's fair to say
if we
Sam-
rephrase
it was
let's
ignorant.
rephrase
it was ignorant. I'm not transphobic.
It wasn't an attack, but it was bad, and if a trans person hears that, and especially coming from atheists, speakers, some really big names,
I mean,
it
I
would
think
be-
that's a good point though, because I was going to bring that up. It's like,
so wait, for
I
people
interact-
that don't understand what's going on, their clip was Sam Harris and Douglas Murray, and they were making fun of how over the top and how out of control the whole demand for pronouns for transgender people has gone. And also the one part is that some people don't even go through any effort to actually transition, and this is like, yeah, I'm a woman now, and you're not going to do anything to change. You're just like, no. You like look for example, nothing to go through, none of the transitions or anything, but just demand that people now treat you as a. So they thought that was.
time to transition.
I know, but I'm saying like we're agreeing that was ignorant, right? But we don't think they were saying stuff that I have heard some trans people, so traditional transgender people make against transgenders. Is that
transgender.
Yeah. In fact, okay, so even though their characterization of the situation was a little bit, I mean, very ignorant, there are fair criticisms of people that have taken it too far. And one example recently of people that shows how far people have taken it is that ContraPoints has recently had to delete her Twitter account. Do you guys know who ContraPoints is?
Yeah, but I don't think we're bringing this up.
No, I'm
We're
just
talking
saying.
about something
My
else.
point is that what Sam Harris was doing and Douglas Murray was doing in an ignorant way was saying that, because I don't think neither of them are transphobic. I think they were pointing out that it's getting too out of control, but they weren't being very nuanced with the way they were saying. So I agree with you on that. But the point that it's getting out of control can be seen when somebody that has been ContraPoints as a champion, one of the main champions of trans rights activism, right? She's very famous. She's done more for the trans community than almost anybody could say. But is that fair to say? Like, when it comes to bringing awareness to trans rights and trans, information, like, no, there are few people in the world that could go as far as ContraPoints. And recently, I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said something that was slightly not.
Yeah, but
Not my.
Douglas
Hold
Murray
on,
said
hold
something
on.
way
No.
worse.
My point.
You're changing the goalpost. So.
No. My point is that the fact that, because I don't think they were attacking trans people. I think the point that they were trying to make is that this whole demands from how people, the language policing is getting out of control. That is their point, and that point is valid, even though they did it in a poor way. And I know that point is valid, given that somebody like ContraPoints has been so much attacked recently that somebody like her is now deleting her Twitter account.
Yeah, but I just need to respond to this. The issue you're making what is called, I guess, false equivocation, not running laws.
No, it's not.
Because what happened to ContraPoints was one thing. What I'm talking about was Douglas Murray's.
I'm not saying, did I say the same thing? I'm saying the point, I wasn't even comparing them to each other. What I was saying is that the point that they're trying to make, I wasn't even making an analogy. I'm saying the point that they were trying to make poorly can be seen in situations like this. But let's see, Mushroom.
This is one of those things where, on these emotional topics, is where we turn off our logical brains and just go into emotional stuff. This year, it's the trans. Right now, this is what it looks like to me. Right now, it's trans rights.
And anti-Semitic accusations.
Last year was Me Too.
Yes.
Because the moment somebody accused somebody, that's it.
Right.
You couldn't say anything otherwise, and you couldn't even in general talk about anything otherwise. And this is exactly the same thing as I see this is exactly the same thing as we saw with Muslims versus Islam, and this is the same thing that we're seeing here. We need to look at, well, we don't need to, we don't have to, but we should, I think, look at what is. What is the Me Too movement, and parse it out, and what were the problems there, and make sure that the victims of it who were genuinely abused get their justice. But we need to make sure that as a movement it also doesn't get out of control.
Right.
Same thing with trans rights. We need to make sure we're reasonable about it as well, because right now it's very much in conflict with women's rights. Why is it that women should allow trans people in women's bathrooms, but
Do you want me in your bathroom?
Do
Do you want me in your bathroom? Do you want me in your bathroom?
It depends. For me, it depends, right? So,
So
generally,
why?
here's the thing.
That's why it's crazy, because the minute you kick them out, you bring me in. Do you want me in there?
Here's
So-
well,
I don't care who's in my bathroom, quite frankly.
The airplanes and the buses don't seem to have a problem with
No,
gender
I
neutral
see it.
walls.
Right? Like,
well, if it's
what are you doing in your bathroom? I gotta ask, at
Oh.
home, do you have like a woman's bathroom
Well,
and a men's bathroom at home?
I don't have people I don't know coming to the bathroom in my home. If somebody knocks on my door and goes, "Can I use the bathroom?" I can say no. Okay. So there's a difference there.
No, I'm saying, have you ever had a man in your home?
Yes.
Yeah, did they use a separate bathroom?
No, but I know them.
No, but
So, do you know every woman that you go into a bathroom with?
No. Okay.
So,
Here's okay.
like, that's
So
what I don't
let's have a look at this then. If you want to look at this, so let's look at this in the context of Me Too versus this year trans rights. I know it's not the same, and I'm perfectly realize that most trans people are wonderful human beings. This is where we look at Me Too opened the door for abusers. Where does self-ID fall into opening the door for abusers?
I'm going to tell you something right now, because this is where you're shooting yourself in the foot. It's where a lot of people don't realize they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Fair.
As soon as you kick out trans women and you make it some kind of law, that mandates, you don't, like, women don't get the overall to say there's no trans people in our room at all. So the minute you do that, you're actually forcing me into your room. Now, it is illegal for you to make me show you my genitalia. It's illegal for you to forcibly look. So as soon as you kick out trans women, you're like, well, people could abuse it because they could say they're trans women. Then I look like a guy. I've competed around the world as a man. No one knew. And I would be like legally forced to use the women's room. So what's to say that any other man in this room couldn't say the exact same thing all day? Instead of saying, I'm a trans woman, they walk in and go, I'm a trans man. They don't have to make any efforts. Now, I know we could talk about the fact that, people don't have to wear a dress or any kind of thing to be a trans woman. But I would argue that it's far easier for any man in this room to say, I'm a trans man, and walk into a woman's room. So, what would you prefer? Would you prefer people who actually identify as women in a women's room? Or do you want people who fully identify as a man
I have a
walking
question.
in?
I have a question. Do you think in a world where transgender people are being, I don't know what the answer to this is, right? So
Yeah.
in a world where transgender people are actually being beaten to death in back alleys and being thrown out of their house and murdered, and is this the right discussion? Like, do you think this whole bathroom thing is like missing the entire point of?
I think it's one of these things, like, I understand what you're saying, and as someone who is disowned and has been beaten up twice, like, I would argue that these kind of, like, debates, like, they might seem like, well, this is nothing big, and I'm like, well, this is the stepping stone.
Right.
Like, if people could, like, stop obsessing over things that don't matter, because there are no cases, like, everyone, it's fear-mongering, right? It's like, this is going to open the door to this, and like I just, like, revealed, it's actually, like, it's not a problem, it could become a problem.
Oh, the door is open at the universities.
Come over.
As the residences at the universities, they have gender-neutral washrooms and gender-neutral showers, and it works. It's already happening. It's been happening for a while,
Yeah.
and it's not been a problem there as far as I know.
But do you guys not
The
think?
city has it all over too.
There we go, another example. There we go.
See, what I worry about is that we had the gay rights movement, and we still have it, and even though it's not, obviously, it has still a long way to go, in the last couple of years, they have made a lot of progress, the gay rights movement. But what I'm worried about is with the trans rights movements, now I thought like now it was the trans rights movement's time to shine. And with all this language policing,
What did I do?
and all this PC culture that just coincided with the rise of the trans movement, it hijacked the trans movement in a way that it became very unpopular among the Generation Z, which we're now saying is going back on a lot of the progress that we made. Like, I think like when people are just like, instead of actually saying how could we make trans lives better, the actual living experience of trans people better, instead of just worrying about, oh, you said this, oh, somebody said that and you laughed, and oh, you made a joke that was like out of line. Like, if these are not the things that matter, I think there are actually even people that are allies to trans people that can't even pass those standards. And if this whole PC culture is taking the trans rights movements down with it, and I'm afraid, and I think like it's not even going to become as popular as the gay rights movement ever even got close to being because of this whole PC culture. Do you agree?
I think it's like that's kind of going into the kind of progressive left type thing.
Right.
That, I talked about before, is like getting overly sensitive. Like a lot of the kids that I mentor, I'm very strong on things like, if you have a friend or you have an ally and you make a mistake, like you've got to kind of find a way to laugh that off like you would any other situation. Like example I usually give is like if someone's in class and instead of saying miss, they say mom, and everyone kind of just like laughs it off. It's not a big deal, it's like mistakes happen. So if someone says he instead of she or she instead of he, it's like react to it the exact same way, laugh at them for making the mistake, and don't get
Well, what do you think about
apprehensive.
insensitive jokes? What do you think about, because like just 10 years ago, people made jokes, stereotypical jokes about Indians, black people, white people, and everybody would just laugh it
They
up.
would say tranny and stuff like that.
But-
That was a big.
Not everybody.
I-
There were lots of people who weren't laughing at those jokes.
I remember people being offended that they weren't being targeted. Like people, Iranian people, like for example.
Oh, those are people just seeking attention.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
No, hold on.
That's a different kind of humor.
No, like people, like there was comedians that they were making fun of the Indians in the crowd, making fun of the black people in the crowd, making fun of the Japanese people in the crowd, and I remember Persians were like, wait a minute, why is nobody making fun of us? Like, why are you like,
If you look to, like, say, Russell Peters making fun of different races, for example, he makes it clear that his intention is not to hate, but it's like, he's making fun with the intention of unifying people. So, and there's a huge difference between you saying a joke in private, that can be a bit edgy in a way, and saying it on a public platform. So, like, let's look at the Sam Harris and Douglas for example. Saying it on a podcast and releasing it to a huge audience.
But you missed that. Okay.
I'm just responding to your question.
No, but that wasn't. I wasn't referring to that because I think you missed that entire again, I didn't like the way they were phrasing
Yeah,
it.
no, I know.
But no.
I
But
was explaining
that
the
was
PC thing.
but that was not targeting trans people. That was targeting a certain way of talking about transgender rights.
Saying women with dicks who can win Women of the Year award, that's kind of,
No, it was about, it's about okay, again, I didn't like the way they were saying it, but the entire point, I don't think neither of those two people are transphobic.
Yeah,
I think the problem I find with stuff like that is that, we can sit here and talk about it and we can debate it, but, I think at the end of the day, I would say that, no matter how much you could defend it, it's like they kind of went about it the wrong way.
Yeah, they went about it.
And I think we could, most people could agree on that.
Yes.
And the problem I find is that, especially having interactions with a lot of LGBTQ individuals, is that they have a very strong aversion to atheist communities because, and it does come into that whole sort of, they got one question, they got the answer to one question right. And there tends to be this kind of whole because they got that question, that answer right. Now it's even if it's just an opinion,
right.
It's I'm right. And a lot of people would say if they would rather be debating a Christian who was anti-LGBTQ, because it's they know there's a well, it's not always, but there's kind of a root cause there, and it's they can debate. It's well, your Bible says this, or your Bible says this, or the Quran says this. You can try and kind of argue almost to the sort of the atheist point of view, which would make them maybe question their holy book, which would maybe then question their views. But a lot of this is just from what I hear.
Yeah,
I'm an atheist.
But that makes no sense because obviously religion is not the only reason why people are transphobic.
It's not, but
because
usually
it's not,
is the case.
I know, but so you're giving up on something instead of trying to solve something. People are they're not.
It's more of an arrogance thing. It's a lot of time people will be why are you against it? Be well, because the Bible says this. You're just
I know.
Yeah,
no,
but the
I'm
Bible
saying,
also says this. But whereas atheists are just well, it's common sense.
No, but what I'm saying.
No, it's not.
Yeah. What in transphobia in the atheist community, we do have that.
Yes.
But people are saying, oh, when Christians and Muslims are doing it, we need to go and solve that. But when they see it in their own community, oh, I'm so disappointed, I'm just going to leave. Well, no, let's solve this. Let's also address this. But I also think people are just, so here, I don't know, I always say this, and I feel like when I say this, people think I'm expecting too much from people. But I go talk to people that want to kill me, right? I have escaped an Islamic world, and now in free Western countries, I'm seeking Islamic communities to go and have a discussion with them, right? And these are people that tell me that in an Islamic state, it would be okay to kill me, right? And if I had the same standards as some people in the left have, some, again, not #not towards who they're not going to talk to and who they're going to, deplatform and who they're oh, it's too far, I'm so disappointed. I wouldn't, how far I would have gotten if I had the same standards to the way many Muslims feel about me and the ex-Muslim community? I wouldn't, 99% of my activism would be completely, I would have to forego that.
I think an argument I would make back to that is that even if an atheist disagreed with you talking to them, they're still 100% on your side.
They're not. They're against me for talking to them.
Yeah, but they're still on your side as an atheist.
Well,
whereas
thank you very much. But they don't care about that. They mostly care about. Let me tell you how bad.
Let's Jack finish his point.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
Because I'm saying, even say that you were to do that, right? And you're an atheist, having a debate with someone who wants to kill you. It's still every atheist is well, he's the atheist and no one should want to kill him. But, but no one should, even if you do get the idiots, right? But they're still atheists. Whereas if I, as an atheist trans man, was to argue with someone, regardless of their religion, that wanted to kill me, there's a whole bunch of atheists that actually agree with that person, regardless of their...
But the problem...
And that's a difference.
But the problem is that the Muslims that says, yeah, one day when we have an Islamic regime, we'll kill you. But he wants to talk to me. the problem with some people that are atheists, that are leftists, are like, oh, you talked to so-and-so that was in this meeting and so-and-so, and I never want to talk to you.
Yeah, how much blowback did you get for talking to Starbucks?
Yeah.
How much blowback are you going to get for this last
Oh my
podcast?
God, I'm already getting that, yeah.
Well, I think the only thing that unifies atheists really is that we don't believe in God. So I think every single atheist is independent on their viewpoints. And two, to do with transgender issues or any issue, they're all individuals. And the reason we go after a religion is because they oppress certain people for the atheist beliefs, like the freeing soul. So he's in jail because of his atheist beliefs, right? He did that. So that we can all agree on that as atheists, because he's
I
being punished for
can't
it.
agree on that, because there are some people within Atheist Republic community, for example, that say like, well, that's the law of the land and you should have followed the rules. So even atheists seem not to be able to agree on that. So
They don't want to show up.
but let me tell you how bad. Like, here's an example of somebody that used to be a friend of mine that I mentioned to him that, listen, I think that gender is non-binary, okay? Non-binary. But if I ever see scientific evidence that proves this view of mine wrong, I'm going to change my view.
Gender or sex?
Gender.
Anything.
Neither.
No, that's not sex, gender. But he said to me that the fact that I would change my opinion on this makes me a transphobe. I was like, listen, I'm on your side. You think gender is non-binary, and I think gender is non-binary. All I'm saying is that if I see evidence that I'm wrong, I'm going to change my position. That was not good for them. That made me intolerant. Like, wait, so you're saying I should just keep this position even if I get the evidence of it? Like, I mean, what are these standards? I don't understand. Like, I lost that friend over this.
They're preferring belief over objectivity.
Yeah, and I'm on the same side. I'm like, listen, we agree on the gender binary thing. We're on the same side. What the hell?
That actually comes up in a lot of different issues. It ties into your point that there's these echo chambers. And one of the things that happens in those echo chambers is you develop a kind of a purity culture. And the slightest deviation from every single point of the dogma in that particular echo chamber makes you an outsider, and outsiders are all evil, just like in fucking religions.
Well, that creates an intellectual frailty, intellectual aversion to challenge, because you're not used to it.
Right.
Because you're in your echo chambers all the time. So anything that challenges your preconceived notions, even a little bit, makes you work.
Right.
You don't want to work because you're not used to it.
You're comfortable.
So you react negatively, and so you react. You lash out.
Right.
It doesn't come from people who stretch their echo tones, not nearly as much, I don't think. I think because I find that kind of reaction to be a reaction of intellectual laziness that comes from echo channels, that comes from echo chambers. Because that's the thing about echo chambers. They're really, really intellectually lazy. If you find something that challenges you, you block them.
Right.
You find all the things that agree with you, and now you're brilliant without thinking.
Well, if there's cognitive dissonance going on, wouldn't that require more energy and more intellectual power to resist that in some cases? I wonder about the intellectual laziness aspect.
Well, I mean, how so? If you have a cognitive dissonance and you have an echo chamber of everybody that shares your same cognitive dissonance, it's real easy. And because the interwebs allows you to meet, millions of people. You can meet 50 people with any views. You can meet 20 people with any views, and they will tell you you're exactly correct. You never have to think. And when you meet that 21st person, well, you've got 20 people. That's a lot of people for humans to know. That's a lot of people that agree with me completely.
Right.
And so you're not used to getting challenged, and so you react to that. Some people they just react so negatively as a defense mechanism. They don't want to be challenged.
Well, I think for a lot of people, it's not really about what's true and what's not true, and that's irrelevant. And I realized this way too late, because if it's not about figuring out what's true, then arguing is pointless. For a lot of people, it's about, this is my tribe, these are the signals, these are the things that people say when they are in my tribe, and these are the things people say when they're against my tribe. So it has nothing to do with figuring out what is true and what's not true. It's basically, I'm saying these things because these are the things that my tribe says.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to recognize who are the enemies the out group is by the things that they say. So as long as it's similar to our enemies, they're the enemies. It doesn't matter if it's what they mean. And for example, the way you can see that is that when people bring out, for example, white supremacists attack Muslims, you see the left always bringing attention to it. But if Chinese people or if Indians attack Muslims, the left doesn't care because they don't recognize Indians and Chinese as the enemy that they decide that is against their tribe, right? So it's not about protecting Muslims. They don't care about Muslims. They care about the signals that they recognize as the enemy, and they go after that. And also with regards to what you mentioned regarding to atheists that are on my side, I actually don't see it that way. I think that the Muslim and the Christian and the Hindu and the Jew that is for more dialogue and removing barriers of communication and fighting censorship and more discussions, even if they got the answers, I think, wrong, I think they are more on my side than the atheist that is trying to find ways to shut down conversation.
I would even argue that that's a good point, because if you, one of the things that I think is lacking in today's education is really just teaching about how you go about peer review studies or finding things out, because now we're living in a world that has the internet and people are getting into those tribes and they're finding those groups where it doesn't matter, they don't have to give evidence. They don't have to give anything. It's just everyone agrees that this is common sense and everyone knows this, and it's something I see a lot is well, it's biology 101, and it's no, it's not. You don't know anything about biology. If you did, you'd know that what you're talking about is complete bullshit. It's if you studied any of this at university, you would know that. But because education is still very much, this is the teacher telling you exactly what to do. We live in a world where we've all got phones. If we need to know anything, we can look it up on the internet, but we don't teach children how to find out how to do research in an effective way.
But it's not about doing research because they're not trying to find it. Okay, but this is
how to find answers. That's what you're talking about, dialogue and talking and talking to different sources and getting your ideas. So a Muslim is not just talking to Muslims; they're talking to you.
Exactly, but the point of
be able to teach kids that.
Yeah, but the point of the dialogue is more than just educating people about science. Because when somebody says a man can't turn into a woman, that's ridiculous, it's X, Y, and but the thing is, when people say this, they're not actually trying to find out what's true. Okay? They're not curious. So if you give them information, it's not going to work on somebody that's not curious. The point of dialogue is. So what are they trying to do when they see these things? They're hey, people from my tribe, recognize that I'm from your tribe and accept me as part of it, right? So the point of the dialogue is more than education. I mean, for people that want to learn, it is education. But the point of the dialogue is for you to meet people outside of your tribe and try to humanize and normalize and build a connection between people of different tribes. For example, when I talk to Muslims, right, and I have a debate to them about Islam, it's rarely that I'm going to change. We are responsible for thousands of people leaving Islam, but that's thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. It's still a very tiny percentage of the people, Muslims that we reach. But the point of the conversation with the Muslim is for them to just meet an ex-Muslim. Right? Not have a debate with them about Islam, have a friendly debate with them about Islam, and they come out of the debate, maybe they still think I'm an idiot for leaving Islam, but they think that wasn't that bad of a person. I don't want them. I talk to a lot of Muslims that argue that this is why ex-Muslims should be killed. And then I ask them, so you think I should be killed? And they're well, maybe not you. Right? Maybe not because they met and
It's a start.
Yeah, it's a start. I mean, because then you have face and a person that you know, and you don't want to argue that
For
they
your
should
logic,
not.
you need the basic law, freedom of expression. If you don't have that one, there's no common sense to get involved in that matter. That freedom of expression, it lets you have a safety for your own thing to communicate with others without getting hurt. If you don't have that freedom of expression law, then everyone can attack each other easily, without any sense.
Right.
So you have to bring that freedom of expression law as a regulation. Then you can say, okay, when we have that one, we can communicate with the Muslim or Jewish or any kind of people, and without getting hurt or any kick out.
But this is beyond just freedom of speech, because a lot of this censorship is not actually violating any of our freedom of speech. Like, if I get kicked off Facebook when I wanted to speak at the university and I got deplatformed, none of that violated any of my free speech. We have free speech laws here, and that wasn't a violation of our free speech. It's censorship, and we're trying to, with censorship, we could just encourage people not to censor, because we can't just force people to platform everybody that they don't like, right? Like we can't do that. We just have to try to reach out to them. And I think it's very important because to recognize that the point of these discussions is just to build bridges with people, because a lot of people think like, oh no, it's to change other people's mind, and they're going to get frustrated when they can't, and they're going to give up. But if you go out and talk to a transphobe and if you have a trans right activist and a transphobe talk to each other, and after a while maybe they can see that they can get along, you're already winning. Even if you don't need to go much further than that, if you already build that connection. Like if you go talk to ex-Nazis, right? Ex-Nazis, they already knew all the arguments against them, right? But the arguments that against Nazism, against their views, didn't turn them into ex-Nazis. It was at some point they met somebody that they liked, that talked to them like a human being. Go look at their stories. It was that personal connection that they were like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be mean to these people.
Have you watched Accidental Courtesy?
No, should I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's this black dude musician out of DC who goes to Klan rallies and befriends Klan members.
Yeah.
And he just does it out of curiosity.
Right.
Why do you want to kill me even though you don't know me? Why do you hate me even though you don't know me?
Right.
And he just talks to them and just becomes their friend without specifically wanting to convert them out of the Klan. And he's got a garage full of Klan memorabilia as people leave the Klan and send him their robes.
Right.
Armin, can I change directions?
Yes, go ahead.
Another question. What significance do you think it has that Justin Trudeau has said the Shahada multiple times in multiple mosques?
Well, I mean, how many times is it?
I didn't know he said that.
Yeah.
What's that word?
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
He said that?
Yeah.
Oh shit! La ilaha illallah. No, wait, la ilaha. Sorry, I said it too. I fixed it. I just joined Islam and I just left it again.
Congratulations.
So wait, how?
Not
Did anybody
You see,
hear?
that's why you need a safety net for freedom of expression.
Right.
Otherwise, if that's not there,
But-
you don't feel like to talk.
Okay, but did you guys know that Justin Trudeau?
What does that mean?
Okay, so to say the Shahadat is what you say to become a Muslim. And he said, so Ashhadu an Allah, so it means I testify that there is no God but Allah, and I testify that Muhammad is his prophet. And he's probably said that to be nice, inclusive, pandering. But honestly, like
Just words in the end, you know.
how have I not heard this?
I don't know.
But I'm
Try to find the sources, but
Okay,
I've seen it
so
multiple
assuming what
sources.
you're saying is true, because I haven't checked, okay?
If it were.
If it were true, I wouldn't be, I want to also be, put ourselves in, because a lot of people look at people like Justin Trudeau and other people that do these things, or like in New Zealand when the woman put the hijab on, right? And that's frustrating and it's ridiculous, and this is also frustrating and ridiculous. But it's also important to acknowledge that these people are not, they mean well, they're just ignorant. because they actually think that they're helping.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to be charitable.
Well, look what he did in India.
Yeah, it's
I
possible.
think it's just the same thing.
Right.
But, I mean, the Shahada, it's a serious thing. You
It's a
don't-
serious
you
thing,
don't-
but they don't know it's a serious thing.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm.
So I'm trying to be like forgiving, not completely because it's ignorant, but at the same time, I want people to be just the same as I want people to be charitable to, if I'm ignorant about something, I want to be also charitable. Like for example, the woman in, is it the Prime Minister or President in New Zealand? I don't know, but she also put the hijab on, didn't she put the hijab on, right? So to me, the hijab is a symbol of ownership over women. That's what it means to me. So when she did that, that was really like, what the hell, right? But at the same time, I can't get that angry with her because she felt like she is
Identifying.
providing support and some kind of solidarity with people that were just being attacked, right?
Yeah.
And I think, like, to me, it seemed like I wouldn't, like, if a whole bunch of KKK members were shot, I would be against that. I would actually go defend the KKK members. I would be supporting them if they were just shot randomly in the street,
Oh my
right?
God, somebody's gonna cut this out.
Yeah, I don't, they have. But I'm not going to go put on a KKK costume in support of them being able to have a rally.
Exactly, that's a good point.
Yeah, I'm not going to go put, like...
Or you don't go put the hijab to support people who have
Yeah,
hijab.
so I think putting on a hijab to support people, like Muslims
That's ridiculous.
Muslims are being oppressed. That's it. I don't call it Islamophobia, I call it anti-Muslim bigotry, right? That's a real thing, that exists. But you don't use a symbol of oppression over women to support people that are being oppressed.
Exactly.
You're supporting a different form of oppression. But the thing is that these people don't know this, and I can criticize them for being ignorant about it. I mean, if you're a prime minister, you have probably more to do than go study the history of hijab and the purpose of hijab.
What did you have staff for, though? I mean,
Well,
you would think that someone would have said something
certainly after
in
the first time.
in his circle.
Yeah.
I mean, so when Obama came, was it in Congress or was it this union? Okay, so I don't know. I think it was a speech. I don't know. He came out and said that in Islam, the Quran says that if you kill one man, it's like killing all mankind. You saw Obama said that, right? When I saw that, I was like, holy shit, that's so bad. Because, so you just said that you would think somebody in their staff would tell that what the hijab represents,
You would
right?
think so.
So I would think someone's on Obama's staff would tell them, did you read the next verse right after? Okay?
What's in the next verse? Do you
What's
happen
the
to know?
next verse? Because Obama was suggesting that Islam is a religion of peace, because in the Quran it says that killing one man is like killing all mankind. Well, first of all, that verse wasn't a command to everybody. That verse was a story about what God said to the Jews, and the Jews betrayed that law. Okay? That wasn't telling Muslims to do that. And also the next verse specifically says that, and also that verse is about innocent people, killing one innocent person. And the Quran and Islam has a very specific definition of who's innocent, because we're here, none of us are innocent, so killing us is okay. And that next verse clarifies that, because people that spread corruption on earth should be crucified. Should be crucified. This is if you put these two verses together, this is what ISIS does. So I mean, somebody in the staff of Obama should be like, hey, the next verse is telling you to crucify people that are spreading corruption without any definition of what it means to spread corruption, which, if you read the rest of the Quran, includes people like me.
Well, Bush Jr. said a lot of strange things too, that he should have known better.
But you know why they don't say anything? Because they've got that term. They've got that perfect term. That is Islamophobia. It's not anti-Muslim bigotry. It's Islamophobia. So if you say, no, Islam then says this, it's like everyone piles on you. It's like as if you're anti-Muslim, like it's anti-Muslim bigotry because you've now criticized Islam but they have that term.
And that term is
So
meant to shut down discussion.
It's meant to shut. It's meant
and
to shut down.
and the whole
criticism.
term's a misnomer because an irrational fear of Islam is what it really means.
If anyone says anything against Trudeau, that's what it's going to be. That's Islamophobia. That's not what that means. It's like, no, it does. It doesn't matter. It's Islamophobia.
After
It's
India,
criticizing
you
Islam.
would have thought that his people would be closer. I don't think it's, I think it's something that he himself thought up and probably didn't even mention it to his minions. You know, may have talked to his wife or something, but nobody who would have the pull, the power to say, hey, don't do it. And by the way, maybe the people even who do have power don't know and don't give a shit. You know, he's doing it, they think it's okay.
So if he said it and he meant it.
No, he's a Roman Catholic.
Okay. No, but now he's ex-Muslim though. If he's a Catholic. Because he said that.
I think he's still going to the Catholic churches on Sundays.
It's next generation multiculturalism, join all the religions.
Yeah.
So anybody asks, are you this? You're yes, correct.
They are universalists.
Well, I don't think Muslims like you being Muslim and also being.
I've met Buddhist Muslims.
Oh my, no, Muslim, that's, no.
If he were to go to a synagogue, he would probably say a Jewish prayer. Doesn't make him a Jew.
He wants the votes.
No,
Exactly.
He's still
He
a
wants
Roman
the votes.
Catholic. That's where he is. That's where he was presumably baptized, and he wants to do it. He professes to be a Roman Catholic, even though I don't know how much he believes in it, being an educated man. But nevertheless, that's what he says he is.
So these lines are being completely like, you know, because we had these lines before, like this is where you're Muslim and you cross it and you become Christian. And people are trying to get rid of these lines. And the people that are more scared about losing these lines are the Christians and the Muslims themselves, right? So for example, we have now LGBT-friendly mosque with female imams and stuff. And some people like us are like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And some people on the left are like, yeah, that's great. But the people that are mostly like, what the hell, are Muslims. And like they hate that more than us. And like at least this guy left and made a clean break. These guys are trying to change Islam. Like seriously, they don't. By the way, in London, I went to talk to a lot of fundamentalist Muslims, and they were very free. Like they were wanting to talk to me. But I went to an all-inclusive LGBT mosque with a Muslim imam, with a female imam, and I almost got kicked out. And I was like telling him, this is not very inclusive of you. No, but seriously, I have an easier way, it's easier for me to make connections to fundamentalists than a lot of these wishy-washy people in the middle. Because at least they know where they stand, and they know where I stand, and they know the conversation that we're having.
Well, I've noticed a lot of the wishy-washy people you're talking about seem to be mastered by political correctness.
Yeah, and they're afraid of having a conversation because they know that they don't have anything to say or anything to back up their points. Because at least the Muslims or the Christians or the Jews or the Hindus, they have hundreds of years of coming up with responses to everything, so they feel like confident in like standing the ground. These new people in the middle of all these like gray areas, they know that they're just standing on a house of cards. They're like, we don't want to have a conversation with you. Because they don't,
I'll just bring this to back as a subject of reform and so.
Right. Okay.
So, you were saying how you can talk to a fundamentalist Muslims, but you can't talk to an all-inclusive, LGBT-friendly, like...
I mean, I can, they don't want me to.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But what I would point out is that if someone leaves the fundamentalist religion, they could be killed. But if someone leaves the all-inclusive, LGBT-friendly one, they would probably not be killed or not be present.
Just can't.
Well, no,
So
actually, they would be killed.
I'd rather have a really PC, like overly PC person who allows people to leave than the other one who tries to kill people.
No, I'd rather those are better people, but they have shittier arguments. Those are not mutually exclusive.
Are those new denominations, by the way?
I don't even know they know what they're.
Because I know there's at least 85 denominations of Islam.
No, these people have no. These are just.
They're creating new denominations, probably.
I don't even think they are.
Without realizing it.
Like I think it's an insult to, different sects. They're like not even a sect. Like they're just like
denominations.
They have no. I mean, the sects like this, they have they have clear borders of this is how you're in and this is when you're out. These people are like, actually they do have, the only people that they want out are people that challenge their views and want to have a conversation.
Echo chamber.
Yeah. But no, but I can acknowledge, like, when I talk to a Muslim fundamentalist and talk to a Muslim reformist, I can acknowledge that, yeah, I probably can hang out with the reformists as a friend more, while acknowledging that the fundamentalist probably has more solid internal logic. Like, so when I say the fundamentalist has a solid more, what it's saying makes logically more sense internally, even though it starts with false premises, it's not a contradiction to the fact that, yeah, don't leave me in the room alone with the fundamentalists. You know, like, these are not mutually exclusive.
The issue is that it's like when you had that conversation with Daniel,
Hanging that Jew, yeah.
So, for example, like every time you're like, oh, we can have conversation with these people. But then whenever there's the other more inclusive people where it's safer to do that, you're always trashing them. So it's kind of like you're making this, you're not saying it, but by being more friendly with the more extremist people and always trashing the more like wishy-washy people, it's like you're making one side look better than the other. Well, it should not be that way.
Well, the thing is
Well,
that,
the other way, it should be the other way.
but I think the best way to get people to consider your position is by being friendly with them, right? So I have managed to get more people out of fundamentalism by just having friendly conversation with them, right? The people that, and they want to have conversation with me. The people that I can't be friendly with are the people that wouldn't, like, they don't want me as friends. So it's not my choice. But anyway, we have an Islamophobia conference right next to here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Is it really an Islamophobia?
Yeah, and is that what is getting loud? Is that like
Yeah,
what are they
there's
doing?
that and there's a party going on down there.
Yeah, some crazy subwoofers over there.
So we
Outside.
have to go, but
Yeah.
So once this is over, because I think we're all out of
Yeah, we're out
time,
of
we might
time,
be able to sneak into the party and see if we can like get some free drinks or something like that.
Hey, if they're true Islam,
Yeah,
they're
okay.
true Muslims, there won't be any free drinks.
Oh yeah, there wouldn't be.
Or at least they won't be spiked.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's what I meant.
So probably shouldn't have spiked drinks.
Yeah. You know, one good thing about fighting Muslims in a friendly way, like having this, is
Can
that
you
they
just let
feed.
them go first because we need to leave.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna say, like, they feed you well. Muslims feed you well.
I guess we could have like a second thing.
thank you.
Are we going on? Do you guys want to go for some food? Whoever's saying.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
You guys want to go hang out somewhere and keep on the discussion somewhere else?
Thank you very much for everyone who showed up.
Thank you for hosting this.
Yeah, this is fun. Eh?
What's
Maybe have a